whatever country that is. So there we go. So yeah, that's a good question. It's one of these it's a political piece of paper, right? So depending on who your country is allied with at that time or not, is who you need to watch out for it. So that's when you're looking at the flags on the horizon, you kind of need to know what's going on in Europe, which is why, as Caribbean historians, we had to learn European history to know what was going on in Europe at the same time that things are going on in the Caribbean. Because everything affects what's going on in the Caribbean. It's just a pawn on, anybody play the game War? Yeah, I know there's like an online version of it now.
Wait, Risk or
Risk.
War? Because War, War's the cartoon.
War's a cartoon, but yes, Risk. Sorry, Risk. Yeah, it's that same kind of concept. If you have all of your pieces over here, and in the NATO sphere, and whatever. It was just this moving around of different pieces. Okay, so with this, everybody is a pirate to the Spanish, unless you have the Asiento, right? The Dutch, the French, the English, it just depends on who you're allied with at that time. So, this is how all those other countries are going to challenge Spain. They're going to import and export, like we just saw with Trinidad and with Jamaica. They're going to attack Spanish ports. So they might not, Piacan was lucky with Havana, but they're going to go to some of the outer places. They're going to go to Veracruz. They're going to, San Juan gets sacked so many times. Cartagena, Panama City, Chile and Argentina, which are kind of on the outskirts of the empire, get attacked. Buenos Aires gets attacked all the time. Valparaiso on Chile's side gets attacked as well. You hit those places that are weak spots for protection. Havana, not so much, because that's where the Spanish might is concentrated, right? So you try not to go there. Although they will, and eventually the British will capture it in the 1700s. But what happens is what's called effective occupation. So technically, remember, because of the line of demarcation, the Treaty of Tordesillas, everything on this side of the world is Spanish. Whether they occupy it or not, in the Spanish mind, it's Spanish. So when somebody else comes in, they are effectively occupying that territory.
Without the Spanish permission?
Without the Spanish permission. So they will go in, like in Jamaica, where you have a gazillion more cows than Spaniards, and the British will say, well, this isn't being protected, and so they send some English settlers there, and pretty soon there are more English settlers than there are Spanish settlers, and they're doing more trade with England than they are with Spain, and then it effectively becomes British, and then you have a war somewhere in Europe, and you sign it away because there are actually more British there than Spaniards. And the Spanish can't say anything because there are more British there than Spanish, right? So that's effective occupation. And that's what happens in the Lesser Antilles, is that whole little arc becomes effectively occupied by somebody else. The Spanish just cannot protect all those places. Okay. So, what kinds of things are we growing? Now, the Spanish do have tobacco on Hispaniola. They have it in Cuba, and they're growing some in Mexico. But they just don't have the numbers to be able to set up tobacco plantations everywhere, right? So they concentrate their energies on specific places. These pictures I actually took in Cuba. So this is that famous Cuban tobacco. And it shows how it's still processed in the way that the Arawak would process it. So this hut right here, This is the drying room, and it's constructed exactly like the Taino would have constructed a tobacco drying room. The tobacco is harvested, hand harvested. These are the leaves there, and then it's hand strung on a line and hung. It looks kind of like bats hanging in the room, and then dries that way. These are the seeds. The seeds are really tiny. You guys know what mustard seeds look like?
Yeah.
Poppy seeds. They're smaller than poppy seeds, and they grow like that. In Cuba, that is the property of the Cuban government. So you might
the seeds?
the seed is the property of the Cuban government.
So if you steal tobacco seeds, you're stealing from the government.
You're stealing from yourself. You're stealing from, yeah.
True.
It's
stealing
very
from
much
yourself.
like that Arawak concept of it's a communal process. This whole process is communal. Communism. But yes, so those seeds they hand out the seed, and then you have a little plot of land that has been granted to you, like encomienda, right? Granted to you by the Cuban government. This guy's family has worked this plot of land for 50 years since the revolution, and then they process it. So then, if the seed is government property, the product of the seed is also government property. To him though, this is good because any fluctuations in that year's crop, he doesn't have to take the fall for it, right? He doesn't. It's the government's stuff, but he is the curator of this land, which is different than 50 years before that, when this land was owned by one property owner. There was like 100 farms on this land. That was an hacienda that was owned by one wealthy family who owned like a quarter of that province. And his family worked for little to no pay on that one family's land. After the revolution, it was divided into small pieces of property, and people were able to then use that property for themselves. They do make a profit, but they don't have as much as if they had been. They're not like sharecroppers. They actually get benefit out of this. Anyway, this is the main crop. This is the wealth that people were going after. It's not gold that most of these. And it's nice if you have a haul like Via Kind did, but this is wealth. The other wealth would be people, right? Slaves are property. So if you capture a slave ship coming in with people on board, with product on board, it's product. You can trade it, right? So privateers, pirates would steal. That's one reason why it's not just the Spanish you go after. You're going after money, right? And so if it has tobacco on it, great. If it has slaves on it, great. If it has cotton on it, whatever you can sell somewhere else, that's what you want. Tobacco, major sources for it: Cuba, Santo Domingo, Mexico, which are definitely Spanish. Trinidad is Spanish until the 1700s. Jamaica, Brazil, which is Portuguese. And Dutch Guyana, which is Dutch, and then at one point it's Portuguese and Spanish. Virginia, which is British, and these are the major traders in it.
So there's like the major growers
Major growers and major traders, which don't always correspond, right? That little tile, this little tile sign here is in Seville. So the Spanish tobacco would go directly to Seville. It's one of the few products that Spain actually manufactured in its country. So they would bring the leaf to Seville and have it rolled into cigars. But that's like one of the only things that they did.
Wait, can we go back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was Molly. Something is talking. It's underneath here somewhere. Yep. There it is.
Oh, okay.
It's what we're gonna be doing later, but it just started on its own there. I was like, what is it? Who's talking? Okay. Okay.
I think that's the video that played after.
Yeah. Okay. So, you guys ready?
One second.
So tobacco, remember when Columbus finds it and it's in his ship, they don't know what to do with it. He's, the caciques are like, here, this is very important to us. Have a little smoke and then, here, have a pile of it. Not gold, but tobacco. And for a while, the Spanish didn't know what to do with it. It gets back to Europe, and most Europeans don't know what to do with it either. It actually takes the Turks to figure out what to do with the Muslims. Actually, were the ones who figured it out, and they take the example of the Arawak and smoke it, right? So they burn the tobacco in pipes, and it becomes a luxury item. And one of those things that you don't necessarily need, but they create a market for it. So this is the first of our major luxury items for which there shouldn't really be a market, but a market is made. And then that drives the whole Caribbean economy, right? There's this product that they develop a need for. We don't need tobacco. It's not a life or death thing, but they've made it into this. So it starts in the Ottoman world. Both men and women smoke tobacco, and then it spreads to the Dutch, who are trading with the Ottomans. The Dutch bring it back to the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands you have smoking houses, and mostly men hang around in the smoking houses and do men stuff like that. The other thing that goes with this is coffee. So the tobacco and coffee start at about the same time. The coffee comes from East Africa. And so that was already in the Ottoman Empire. They already had the coffee. You add the tobacco to that. Again, another, two crops that you don't necessarily need, but they make a market for both of these things. And those kind of start coming together hand in hand. So you have these coffee houses, which are also smoke houses, and those two develop together. Now, coffee is bitter in its normal state. So what do? They bring something from Asia to help you imbibe in the coffee, and that is what? Sugar, yes. So that sugar, the Portuguese have figured out how to have large plantations of this and have brought Africans off the coast from their trading areas to Sao Tome and the Azores. The Spanish say, oh, that's a good idea, and they start in the Canary Islands bringing Africans off of the west coast to the Canaries for large-scale production of sugar. Works there, let's bring it to the Americas. So coffee, tobacco, and sugar all become these products that are a made market, right? It wasn't something that people needed. It wasn't necessity. They were luxury items. And the luxury, suddenly people think they need, and it develops its own market. We also found things to do with tobacco. It's a new product, right? And one of the things that discovering this new world does is start intellectual thought, builds all kinds of new sciences. And one of the things that does is builds on the botanical, the apothecaries, the pharmacists kind of things. And so they add some of these new plants that they found in this new world to their botanical library. Tobacco is one of them, and I love the things that you can do with tobacco. So this is what the tobacco plant looks like, the flower and the leaf. You can make a slight infusion, like a tincture, and that will help with your aches and pains, your bodily aches and pains. You can make an ointment, kind of like, well, what is this, you guys? Inflamed piles.
No?
Nope.
Bug bites.
Oh, if only it were that benign.
No.
You guys know what preparation H is?
No.
You guys know what hemorrhoids are?
Yes.
That's this.
Ah.
Okay. So this is a 17th century version of preparation H. So it's an ointment that you put on your rectum to not have pain. That's what that is. You can use a distilled oil of the tobacco, and just put it, when you get when you have a toothache, you can just put it on your tooth, put it on a rag or cotton, just lay it on your gums, and it'll, it actually does something. What does it do?
Does it clean it?
Is it dead in the nerves?
Yeah, it anesthetizes the nerves.
Okay.
Yeah, tobacco is an anesthetizer. So and in that oil, it deadens the nerves. So it actually did work. I like this one. You can pound leaves, make powder out of it, and sprinkle it in somebody's hair or on the bed, and it should kill the lice. I'm not sure if that actually worked, but that was one of the things you could do. It was like a lice and rat deterrent, which there were a lot of in the Europe of the 1600s. Not a very clean place, so the fact that you needed that was a necessity. It's not a luxury. And this one is my favorite.
Yeah. That one's absurd.
Smoke of the tobacco injected in the manner of a clyster. What's a clyster? The clyster itself is not an enema,
Okay.
but it does form an enema type effect. The clyster is actually, you've seen the things that you can, bowels that to pump up fire. So there's a bladder that has air in it, and it's like an accordion, and there's a pipe at the end of that, and you press on it, and it pushes out air. So that's a clyster. So you put the smoke in that bladder, and you put that bladder
Up your butt.
up your butt, and you blow smoke up your ass. That's
Literally,
Is it really true? Sounds like a mean buzz.
sounds like a mean buzz.
I don't know if it would give you a buzz, but it supposedly got rid of the worms and diarrhea and that kind of stuff. So.
The craziest thing is that they use it as a thing for drowning. Oh, he's drowning. Strip his pants.
Well, that one you would actually put in your mouth.
Oh, okay. I was about to say that seems
Yeah.
like a. No.
Dude.
I mean, it's better than water, I guess, is their reasoning.
It would make you throw up. Think about, and what you want is to cause some spasm
Get rid
in
of the
those
water.
muscles, and so that's what it's doing is causing a spasm in the diaphragm, and so that it worked. I'd be really upset if somebody blew a whole bunch of smoke up and down my throat like that, but I'd be alive. So yes, so these are in the botanical book that apothecaries would use if you come in and say, oh, my husband has the piles, and he would give you the tincture for that. So there are some good things, but it's also, as we well know, addictive. All three of those things are addictive, right? coffee, tobacco, and sugar are addictive. They make this market for these things. And people are like, oh gosh, now I need it. Starbucks, right? It's like, can't live without my coffee. So all these things, people figured it out pretty quickly. The Ottoman Empire banned it. King James, who's the guy who follows Queen Elizabeth, says it is a custom dangerous to the eye, hateful to the nose, harmful to the brain, dangerous to the lungs. And he suggested that the English not transport it, not import tobacco, not grow it, and if they were to grow it, then not to bring it into the actual kingdom. That didn't go over very well. So we're making too much money already off of this. So, but people did know pretty early on how dangerous that was. There was also the Ottoman emperor said something about the connection between tobacco and coffee causing licentious acts, just like making people a little too lusty, and he thought that was a bad thing. So he actually banned tobacco and tried to get a religious order to ban caffeine. And in fact, in some Islamic sects, you can't imbibe in any of the alcohol, tobacco, or caffeine. Mormons can't smoke, can't drink coffee, and can't imbibe alcohol. So it comes from somewhere.
Did King James ban it? Or the
Oh, here it
Ottomans?
is. King James tried to ban it, the Ottomans do. Yes, this is one I love. A refuge of Satan, right? The tobacco houses and coffee houses were, Starbucks is a refuge of Satan. Sounds like a
Yeah, so I remember reading about like the ban on tobacco, and it didn't work at all, didn't it?
No, why not?
People were making too much money on it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was just saying, like, in the Turkish,
So
like, he beheaded,
died-
like, a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, he beheaded people.
And they didn't do anything.
He tried not to allow ships into Turkish waters, but people are making money, so there's a black market for it. And when he died, the new sultan was like, I can't fight this. So then he taxes it beyond an inch of his life. He's controlling it immensely. Okay. It of course becomes very popular. It's the artwork. This is just, it becomes more than just a luxury item, right? So just the grade of the tobacco is how good the tobacco is will vary on your class, but it becomes something that everybody imbibes in. So we start with just smoking the stuff. Then, of course, you've got to find out other ways and make it new and exciting. So snuff, what do you do with snuff?
You snort
Sniff it. You snort it. Yep, this is 18th century, snorting stuff. Some people still do. Mostly what's done now is people will chew it instead of snorting it.
Is it the same thing?
Is it
Like,
like
like
tobacco?
it's the same,
The chewing tobacco is a little more coarse,
okay,
but it
okay.
it's not that much different.
Yeah, the snuff is like a brown powder.
It's more powder. So, but you can chew this too. You can chew snuff. So
It's just not gonna taste. It's not gonna taste all that good.
neither does chewing tobacco. Neither one of them tastes good. It's the same thing. It's just how fine you grind it.
Okay.
But this became something you would go to people's houses and they'd have a snuff box on the table waiting for you on the mantle. They carry them with them. When I was in Hong Kong, these were all over. When you go to the antique shops, they're in all, they were like Indian arrowheads, right?
In
It was
Germany,
like
they're the
everywhere.
same way.
Germany, yeah, when I was in Munich, the same thing.
Yeah, Munich.
It was, these little, everybody had them. You could carry it in all different kinds of ways.
My grandfather's neighbor is like 85 and he still does stuff. He has this little little box and just goes.
Yeah.
I
I mean, it was
tried
a
it.
classy way of, you know.
I tried it.
I mean, it's more.
It's not. It's
Your
not,
nose is still
tobacco.
there, so,
it's not
yeah.
bad. Yeah.
It's less noticeable.
Some other ways.
Whoa.
So this is a cane, a walking cane. You got your snuff all there ready.
Oh, I thought it was
I thought that was gonna be a pipe.
It's a walking cane. And
What, do they just hide in there?
it's not hidden.
Not
Everybody,
hidden.
yeah. It's easy access. This is the way a lot of people would carry it. You see pictures of this little like a dagger kind of thing, and a lot of people think it's a dagger if you don't know any better. But now, when you guys look at artwork from the 1700s and you see something like this, more likely, depending on who's in the picture, it's more likely a snuff box. People didn't walk around with little daggers on the side of
Is
the
that a nun?
No.
Okay,
No, it's
good.
not a nun. But that's good, Caleb, because this is, we think of nuns as wearing habits. This is normal Christian wear. So, you know, we talk about Muslim women in hijab. Christian women
Shut up on the
wore
bottom.
something on, who are you talking to?
The microphone.
Christian women wore covering, wore hijab, wore modesty until the beginning of the 19th century. And in the Catholic Church, you didn't go into church without a head covering. I mean, you might not wear it outside, but as soon as you walked into church right by the sanctuary water, by the holy water, women until 1965 would wear a little veil.
Is
over
that,
their head.
is that where like church hats come from?
Church hats women wore hats until
Right.
the Kennedy administration. So you just didn't take your hat off because your head should be covered. Women's heads should be covered. That's modesty. Men take their hats off. You actually are supposed to have your hats off in the building. But women can wear their hats because it's actually a modesty issue. So, true etiquette, men should actually have their hats off.
Didn't women stop wearing hats after the Kennedy administration?
Both women and men.
Because
Kennedy
Jackie-
didn't.
and
Jackie
Jackie
wore
didn't.
them. Jackie wore them, but Jack didn't.
Yeah.
The president did not. He was the first president not to wear a hat. First president ever not to wear a hat, and it killed the hat industry. She didn't wear gloves. Women wore hats and gloves. She still wore hats, but she didn't wear
What kind of
gloves, and it
baseball
killed
hat?
the gloves.
Don't wear like a baseball hat? Or
Like a fedora.
These were dandy hats. These were real hats. Like,
Bowlers and
yeah, like these, you know, all these guys are wearing hats, right? Everybody's wearing a hat. You wore a hat. There are hat stores. There's not any anymore. There's one up in Montreal that I know about that my husband goes to, but yeah, hats were, you wore them. You guys coming to school would be in class. You would be wearing suits and ties, trousers, and hat. At St. Michael's College. That was proper classroom attire. All you guys should do that. Real shoes, you know, pants, jacket, tie. That meant you were properly attired. And for a long time, you also had carried cigarettes. You might not smoke yourself, but it was proper to offer other people. So you'd have, you know, the snuff box on your table. You'd have, my aunt had this beautiful cigarette case. I didn't know what it was because by that time she had stopped smoking and everybody, we would play with it. This beautiful cigarette case. So you would offer people a smoke, right? So that was a big thing. We talked about Piet Hein and all that. We did that. Okay. Effective occupation. So we talked about Jamaica, right, coming about. And more effective occupation. So all of this stuff here, the French and English, battle between all these islands, the Dutch and the English, battle over Barbados, and the English end up with it. St. Kitts, St. Lucia go between the French and the English, depending on treaties happening in Europe. Martinique and Guadeloupe also go between them. These two ended up in the early 20th century as English, but they speak a French patois. So the Creole they speak, the everyday language that they speak, is French based. But it's British. They're British territories, and Martinique, it has a lot of English in it. Their Creole has a lot of English in it. So, but it's because they kind of go back and forth depending on who's winning and losing wars in Europe. So, one island that we're going to talk about, and then we'll go on to the pirates, is this island here, which stays Spanish for quite a while. Hispaniola is Spanish, but the Spanish, as they are pulling out and going to all these different places, depopulate this island. There's nobody left there. It's not useful anymore. There are more cows there and pigs there than people there. So, yeah, there we go. So we have, by the mid-1600s, we have less than 300 people, 300 Spanish people, because there are quite a few more African slaves and indigenous still on the island. But there are less than 300 people on this whole thing, whole island. So what the Spanish governor does is says, if you live anywhere outside of Santo Domingo, you are now ordered to come to Santo Domingo, where I can protect you. Majority of the population actually is up here. Why are they up here?
Because that's the way out. That's the
This
trade
is the
route.
trade route,
Yeah, that's the
yeah.
trade route.
So you come from Havana, and remember the Bahamas are here. You come through this way. Florida's right there. You come through this way. So the ships are coming in and out up here, not down here. So if you are trading things with them, you want to trade up here. Whether or not they have a nacimiento, it doesn't really matter to these folks, but that's where the ships are. So that's where the people are. The governor of the island can't protect them, because every once in a while they're raided because they happen to be Spanish. So people think they have money or something, product. So he's like, I can't protect you. So you guys have to move down here, and it totally destroys everything. The only thing left up here are cows and pigs. So now the Spanish can't protect, there's no people here to protect this place. There's no people to harvest the animals there. So what ends up happening is this little island becomes populated by runaways, basically. So people who run away from the French Navy, the English Navy, the Spanish Navy, the Dutch Navy, whatever Navy it is, from slavery on any of these islands. So you've got a bunch of Africans living there. Yeah, exactly.
Connections.
And they live there. What they do is have raiding parties onto the main island to kill cows and pigs. And they then bring that meat over here. And remember our bukan? They smoke that meat. And remember, we've got lots of ships going along here. So they sell it to the ships.
So, do they ever raid the ships? I feel like that would be
Yes.
okay.
They do.
They're the Buccaneers.
Yes. Yay. Those are our buccaneers.
And we're about to beat the Steelers tonight too. I'll point that out. It's happening.
Go for it. Be my guess.
So now you know where they got their name. So yes. So that's what's happening here. The Spanish have no control over this because they moved everybody here, and we've got even less than 300 people because we're not there either. So there's nothing to protect this. This becomes pirate haven, right? I mean, there's nobody to attack them. There's nobody to tell them they can't be there. It's a safe zone, and it's also an awesome place to capture enemy ships, right? And an enemy ship is anybody who's not one of your gang from Tortuga. That's what that is. So this all is supposed to be Spanish. Then something happens, some war, and there's a treaty in Ryswick.
Yeah.
Anybody know where it is?
Oh,
It's probably not.
Germany? Okay, yeah. I don't know. Paris?
England.
No, it's gotta be in the low countries.
One of you two is right.
Paris.
Netherlands.
Why don't you guys look it up? Find out.
What is it?
Ryswick.
Is it in Switzerland?
Come on, computer boys.
I'm going. Dutch. Town in Netherlands, yeah.
It's a town in the Netherlands. I've been there.
It's
Oh.
crazy. different.
So there's a
Spencer, I
treaty
get a 100.
that is signed by the English and the Spanish and the Dutch and the French about this territory that we've been talking about, all this effective occupation, right? Well, I'm here, you're not, so can I get this and I'll take that, and then you start shuffling pieces around the board. It's the first really major shuffling of property in the Caribbean among the English, among the European folks. So what it does is divides Hispaniola into 1/3 and 2/3. There's a little imaginary line that goes down. There's a mountain range that goes down this third of the island. And the Spanish are like, well, since most of the inhabitants of Tortuga are French, and we've got some French settlers who have settled up in this northern area, we'll claim that land. And the Spanish are like, you cannot have the whole island. It's just that was our first place. It's dear to our hearts. We can't give you the whole island. So that's why they split it where that mountain range was. There's also a river that goes. It's two very easy demarcation points so that you can divide that island. So they divided there. The Spanish get this side. The French get this side. The French actually got the better end of the deal. This is much more. You can grow much better stuff over. Fertile. Thank you. That was what I was thinking. Much more fertile over on this side.
So do the French try to wipe out the Buccaneers?
They will eventually. Yeah. The Buccaneers are the reason why they get this land. But then they also become a problem because this becomes the wealthiest outpost of the French Empire.
Is that also the modern divide between Haiti and Yemen?
It is. Yeah. It's the same line.
It hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed since 1697.
Wow.
Some of the other places that were shuffled around, St. Kitts. Remember I told you that they spoke that French patois is because it's divided, like San Martin is right now. It was divided, that little island of St. Kitts is divided in half as well between the French and the English. St. Lucia becomes French because of the Treaty of Ryswick. There's one other island, I can't remember now. St. Lucia, St. Kitts, and
Is it Nevis?
well, Nevis was a part of St. Kitts at that point. No, Nevis would have been English. Nevis is English. Nevis is actually where Alexander Hamilton is from.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the other island was that was a part of this. But so this is what's going on. So something like this will happen in Europe, and this will happen in the Caribbean. Right? So there's some war, a little treaty that goes along with that war, and the pawn pieces are in the Caribbean. Okay. All right. So we've got we talked about that. We've got now all of these things happening in the Caribbean, and you saw Little Tortuga, right? So there's opportunity that none of these empires can completely protect everything, right? They have to pick and choose what they want to protect and how they want to protect it. So that leaves a lot of opportunity for interlopers to come in and try to make money themselves. That's where we get our buccaneers, pirates, corsairs, whatever you want to call them. They're private entrepreneurs, right? They are working sometimes with the state, sometimes without. Sometimes they have a letter of marque from the state, and then the state signs a treaty, and suddenly it's null and void. Of course, you're out in the middle of the water, and you don't know what's going on, so you attack a ship under, thinking you're safe, and that ship's just come out of port, and it's like, treaty null and void, right? So you have, it's a risky life, but it can be really prosperous if you get a Piatine type haul, or not, it doesn't even have to be that big. If you get one big haul, one slave ship that's full coming off of the coast of Africa that hasn't hit the Caribbean yet, you're rich, right? I mean, that's a lot of money. So that's why people did this. Another reason why people did this is because there's a lot of freedom to it, right? There's risk involved, but you're not part of the English Navy, which was notorious for not being a fun place to be, right? You're not under anybody else's control. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys read in the Lane book about what it's like being a pirate. So I have recruits in here. You guys want to be pirates? No?
I mean, back to the time period. Maybe.
Okay, let's go back in the time period, because, 2018 probably not as much fun.
Yeah.
We do have pirates now, and it's not really a fun life. But let's go back to 1650.
Samuel.
Why?
Well, I don't know, just growing up as a kid, I'd always seen like Pirates of the Caribbean, and I always thought like, yeah, that'd be so cool to sail around Europe and around the Caribbean.
Okay,
Yeah.
but now that you've done some reading on life, and it's 1650 as a kid, and you read Robinson Crusoe, or you go see a Shakespeare play, you still have that same desire?
Maybe if I was a captain of a pirate ship, but I'm not sure if I'd be like just like a regular crew member. You know what I mean?
Okay. Anyone else?
I mean, I think that it offered, like you said, like the sense of freedom, not only from like people telling you what to do or anything like that, but just like you're able to, like you said, you're able to see places, sail places. If you're a peasant that's like, you're a cattle herder or whatever on an island, you may have made the journey over. You could have been born on the island, but you're probably going to stay on the island for most of your life. So like the idea of like being able to see different things, different people, just experience a life that isn't tending cows every day, I guess definitely has some appeal.
It's also one of the only ways to get out of your class.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's upward mobility.
Like if you come from like a bad family background, if you don't have any money, like let's say you grew up like on the streets of having to steal and stuff, like you could put the stuff you learned then to use as you got older and make money, and you could come back and provide for your family.
Yeah.
Or just say screw it and provide for yourself.
Well, there's that
I was
too.
gonna say on the road, but on the water.
Yeah, on the high seas. Yeah. Now, Ian, you said you wouldn't want to be a captain, but what is life like on the ship?
Dirty, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's dark.
They have
it's,
rats.
Yeah.
They have rats, yes
Yeah.
they do.
It's scary.
I mean, it's not necessarily any different though from like anything to do with ships at that time. Like
Yeah.
a pirate ship wasn't anything different from like a Spanish galleon.
Actually, it was.
It was?
I mean, the actual living conditions might not
Yeah,
be,
that's what I was saying.
but the governance
Yeah.
of the ship is 180 degrees from what you would get on any of the military ships, any of the European powers' military ships. How so?
Well, one, you can like it is 100% that there is someone in charge,
Mhm.
but you also have more of a say because it's not like you're getting an order from a king to someone else, someone else, someone else. The person you're listening to is the person. See.
And how is that person in charge?
The common like idea, like, yeah, the common agreement among
He's
everyone.
voted.
Yeah.
He's voted as captain, so it's not somebody who's imposed on you. You've chosen that captain.
At one point. Later you may not
Well,
agree
yeah, he
with
might
that.
become tyrannical,
Yeah.
but then you can also get rid of him
Yeah.
by code. If he becomes tyrannical, you can code him out. I mean, there is a code, right? Might not be written out, but in the pirate world, you have way more say than you would ever dream of having on a military ship, or even on a merchant ship. So this is one of the appeals of being on a pirate ship, right? Is that you actually, unlike any of the societies that we have at this point in the 1600s and 1700s, you actually have a say in what goes on in your little world.
And you can be elevated.
And you can rise, you can fall, you can rise. You can definitely rise. And if you are a people person, you can rise really fast and have the backing of everybody, right? So this is what makes it so appealing. It's a place where in a non-egalitarian world, a world of slavery, a world of Navy impressment. You guys know what impressment is, right?
Pressing someone in.
Yeah, where they steal you and put you in the Navy, and you are now in the Navy. So in a world of that, in a world of serious caste system where you have very little ability for movement out of what caste you're born into, this is appealing. And it's appealing for both men and women. Because all those ideas, those gender boundaries are also taken away on a pirate ship. We have female pirate captains and sailors and all. I mean, some of the most famous pirates were female. One of the most famous Chinese pirates was a woman, and she had control of multiple ships, not just one, multiple ships. So pirating was a different world, and people were, I mean, that was why women, people of color from all over the place, maybe you get people from the South Seas, Maori and Hawaiian and all, people from all over, Africans, runaway slaves, all these people joining these crews and working right alongside French and Spanish and Dutch and that kind of thing. So, which is why that first Pirates of the Caribbean is so good. You're on Tortuga, right? And you see the town, and you see the crew that is made. Female pirate, a female captain, and a multicolored crew. That he
Assembled.
so thank you. I can't find words today. That he assembled,
You
right?
see it in Barbossa's crew as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The tattoos on the Samoan that was there. You've got all that. So that was done really well. Much better than a Douglas Fairbanks movie.
So, I have a question that I don't know if you can answer or not, but because of like the equality among the genders there, I feel like there's stories of like rape and everything like that, so like, was that a problem? I feel like that would be a problem on the ships, or?
It wasn't a problem on the ships. It was an issue when you're raiding a
looted,
town,
yeah.
because rape is not about it's about power, right? And so you're expressing power over somebody, and that's why. But on a ship, because you don't have that power dynamic,
Everybody's saying, yeah.
it wasn't an issue. It might be an issue if you captured somebody and put them on your ship. Then you might have that that it's about power dynamics, so then that's why it's happening. But with your crew,
No, because
it
everybody's the same,
shouldn't
yeah.
happen. If it does happen, then you have recourse.
And that's tyrannical and possible, yeah.
Right, exactly. You're going against code, right? You're attacking someone. It's almost like an Arawak village, right? You're attacking somebody who is not giving you permission to do that. So, that's a good question. I mean, it's something to think about with all of the things that with the pirates. So what? Let's see what I got. What I want you guys to do for today, you've done some reading and you've watched, have you all watched the movie? Okay, and did you watch the video that I had linked here?
I've not done that.
Okay, so what I want you guys to do is, that's not it.
Where's
Is,
the video
What
link?
video?
Zoom?
It is under, not that yet, modules. It's under modules, whoops, there we go. And under week 5, here. So just click on modules, and there's a movie right here. Okay? So watch,
There.
yeah, so watch this one, but also, I checked, it's not on Hulu, it's not on, because Disney took all their movies off of everybody's, it's not on Netflix anymore. But we have it in the library, so watch the first Pirates if you haven't done that. Watch this documentary as well, and then we are going to watch the thing that was talking in the background right now, because what we're going to do on Thursday is Wednesday, right, on Wednesday, is to design your own pirate land. Oh, a park. So, the thing about this is you have a fun part of you get to draw the design of it. But the harder part is you have to write a proposal to a board of directors who is going to approve your plan. So what you have to do with this proposal is explain why, what's in your park, why you're putting certain things in your park, how you want people to think about pirates. So we'll talk a little bit more at the beginning of class on Wednesday about perceptions of pirates. So how we perceive pirates versus the reality of pirates, which is why I have you read The Lane, but then also watch the Disneyland thing, right? And so you've got, it's like, this is how pirates are thought of, but this is the reality of pirates. So how much of the reality do you want to put in your park, right? You are educationally minded, so you want people to learn about pirates. How do you want to do it? Okay, so start thinking about that, and we'll talk more about it on Wednesday. But for the rest of class, what I wanted to do is just show you, because this is how I got to love pirates. I grew up in Southern California with Pirates of the Caribbean. And I would make between It's a Small World and Pirates of the Caribbean, I drove my parents absolutely crazy running between the two, between New Orleans Square and later it became
That's in
Space
Florida.
Mountain, but
I was about to say, those are later, those are pretty far apart.
not in Disneyland is tiny.
Oh, okay.
I've
So
heard of that one.
yeah, Disneyland's tiny.
You ever been to the new one the Pirates one in?
I've been to, yes, I have. I've been to, I lived in Florida for a while and had a pass. So we're gonna watch this until the end of class. Probably. So this is from 1968. This is before I was born, but it looks a lot of the same. That's Disneyland.
Hi, and welcome to Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom, Disneyland. I'm Marcia Miner, a traveling ambassador for Disneyland. But today it's great to be right here at home because our show is something extra special in Disneyland entertainment. Here in the Magic Kingdom, we have several important traditions that are part of the special magic of Disneyland. The most famous is a wish Walt Disney made the day Disneyland opened, when he said, Disneyland will never be completed as long as there is imagination left in the world. Walt Disney's wish has come true almost every year, and new shows and adventures and whole new lands for your enjoyment. On this program, Mickey and I will introduce you to some of Disneyland's newest and most exciting attractions. The fabulous Pirates of the Caribbean, New Orleans Square, the People Mover, Carousel of Progress, and the all-new Tomorrowland. Where you can see we have almost a whole new Disneyland to show you, so we better get started.
You know, Mickey never talks.
Takes a long time,
He's not allowed to talk in the
sometimes
park.
years to make a dream come true.
Yeah.
In 1965, Walt Disney brought another Disneyland ambassador, Julie Ream,
Yeah.
for Imagineering Department,
None of the
and
characters can
described his
talk.
plans for the
None of the-
attraction
none of the
you're going to
animals
see
can talk.
today.
Because they won't have to say
Well,
Right,
that big
yeah.
hole that we talked about earlier, well, this is what's going to go in that big hole. This is what we call New Orleans Square. And here's a picture of it from the riverfront as it will look when it's finally finished. And all these little streets are going to be very intriguing, little shops.
He doesn't
and
drink.
things. And people can wander
His father's a
around
drunk,
in
so
there.
he did not
And then
drink and did not
Is that
allow
Walt
it.
Disney?
We have a
Yeah,
special attraction.
that is Walt Disney.
Wait,
Yeah. You didn't
Yep.
what?
Blue Bayou Lagoon. People are going to get on a boat here. Right through
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
And as they
cryogenic.
get around here, we're going to
Yeah,
take them
but
back
that
into
facility
the
is
past,
messed
into the
up.
days of the
They were like
pirates, you know, where the whole Caribbean area was full of pirates, and they're always
Imagineering.
But
But you guys, this is important. Think about, this is what he's thinking of. This is how he's thinking of adding the pirates in, right?
I think this little miniature here is taken first from a sketch. We make these sketches to figure out the types and the characters. But this will animate when we have it in the show, you know. You have some one. Now these sketches here have to do with some of the things that are going to happen when you take this cruise through the pirates' domain. Here's one. Here is a pirate laden with loot. He's trying to escape. He's got 1 foot on the dock and 1 foot on a rocky boat. But you know, as the people go by, they see him. He's struggling and everything.
Good luck to him.
Well, he can't make it. Or the show would go to pieces. You see, he has to stay there all the time and keep trying to get away. Now we'll go around and see the town that the pirates are sacking. It's right over here. Here are the pirates here ransacking and carrying away loot. Now over here, Julie, is the town. This is a Caribbean town at the period. And you get down here and look to that little ring, you'll get the view that the audience gets. Now here, you see the pirates are dunking the mayor into the well, trying to force him to reveal the hiding places of the town treasure. The audience will be seeing this from a boat, you know. All the characters will be life-size and lifelike in their movements. These fellows have found the town's rum supplies, but they're actually
Isn't this
more
exactly
interested in
like the
what's
one in
taking
Orlando
place
too?
across the river.
Pretty
Well,
much.
they've changed because of the movie.
These are
There's
auctioning off
there's
the
some
town
differences.
beauties.
But yeah,
And
it's the
there's
same
the
line.
biggest bargain of all.
But Disney World hasn't been built yet.
That is absolutely fantastic.
No, I'm just looking at that, some of that stuff looks like
It's the
familiar.
same. It's the
It's a
same line.
dramatic scene.
But how could you top it?
Well, we set the place on fire. And we have our audience trapped down in this flaming city.
And how can they get out then?
Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible at Disneyland.
Yes, anything's possible at Disneyland. And everything in Disneyland began as an idea at a unique branch of the Disney organization called WED Enterprises. Here, the skills of the sculptor and the talents of many artists combine to create the amazing audio animatronic cast of the Pirates of the Caribbean. For their parts in the show, even the boldest buccaneer was groomed and dressed in his Sunday best. And here's part of the cast of 66 life-size pirates and their ladies. A lineup worthy of the name, Rogues Gallery. New ideas for Disneyland are first visualized in artists' renderings like this overall view of the new Tomorrowland area. The painting begins to take on form and dimension with construction of a scale model, detailing every attraction. Here's the towering rocket pylon. The cars of the People Mover. The colorful new bandstand. This scale model represents more than 5 acres of new attractions in Tomorrowland. Inside these buildings are shows and exhibits presented by half a dozen of America's leading companies. Along this elevated guideway, the People Mover cars travel past Tomorrowland's 2 huge theme murals, each 15 feet high and 54 feet long. Here, artist Mary Blair has combined the free spirit of children at play and a symbolic sun to express the theme, energy. These artisans are translating her drawings into 1-foot square pieces of ceramic tile. In its completed form, this mural will contain more than 2,000 individual hand-painted tiles. Tomorrowland is also the home of a complete model city of the future. Even in its formative stages, it captured the rush hour spirit of a modern metropolis.
I'm gonna go forward a little bit so we're back in
is
the
authentic right down to its landscaping. Of creative imagination with technical know-how.
back with the pirates.
The audio animatronic performers in the Pirates of the Caribbean show are an example of Imagineering at work. As its name implies, audio animatronics begins with sound. Recorded on tape, the sound can be played back at any time, always on cue. The coined word animatronics represents a special kind of three-dimensional animation.
Remember, this is 1968. This is like
not
in the well.
high tech.
Yeah, I know, this is like...
The third key to audio animatronics is the electronics of the space age. Using complex equipment and systems, these specialists are programming every movement of every pirate, and also the more subtle movements of their prisoners.
Yep, that one's still there.
Yeah,
When all three processes,
Well, it was in the movie too.
animation and electronics, were finally combined and synchronized, the pirates began to come to life. Meanwhile, other craftsmen were preparing the scene of battle for the arrival of the buccaneers. Canvas sails began to show the signs of battle, bullet holes and gunpowder burns. The old Caribbean town was given an aged look, with the usual care and precision. And finally, it was almost time for the pirate crew to set sail. But first there was one more journey, perhaps the most dangerous of all. The trip from Wed to Disneyland on the Southern California Freeway. Destination is close by Disneyland's own muddy Mississippi. Here all sizes and shapes of ships sail, from the majestic stern-wheeler Mark Twain to the mighty 3-masted vessel Columbia. New Orleans Square, the new home of the pirates, is located at a bend of the river, just a few steps from the landing where the Mark Twain and Columbia dock. With its ornate woods and lacy iron grillwork, New Orleans Square stands above all the lands in Disneyland for sheer elegance of design and the faithful recreation of another age.
If this looks like a page out of an old New Orleans photo album, it was planned that way. This is the Queen of the Delta as she looked a century ago, when cotton was king and steamboats ruled the Mississippi. Here in Disneyland, New Orleans Square is the first entirely new land built since the Magic Kingdom opened in 1955. As Walt Disney said, New Orleans Square is a place where you can wander down winding streets and roam through picturesque courtyards. You can dine here in a restaurant where moonlight shines all day long, or shop for rare antiques at the one-of-a-kind shop. At Mademoiselle Antoinette's perfume shop, ladies may even blend their own exclusive brand of perfume. And of course, New Orleans Square can never be New Orleans without a marching band playing the toe-tapping sounds of Dixieland jazz. Disney Studio, we've always been partial to pirate stories. You remember my friends, Captain Hook and Mr. Smee from Peter Pan? New Orleans was once the home of real live pirates like the notorious Jean Lafitte. So what better place for the Pirates of the Caribbean show than right here? Opening day was dark and dreary, the kind of day that would have brought a ray of sunshine in the hearts of Blackbeard or Long John Silver. At Columbia, the newspaper and television reporters were out in force to cover the grand opening, armed to the teeth with pencils and cameras. Hardly a fair match for a swashbuckling band of buccaneers armed with pistols and cannons.
And photographers safely in tow, there was only one more hurdle for the pirates to overcome. The Spanish Main, the Pirates of the Caribbean.
So if you've never been on the ride, you're about to go on the ride right now. And boat's named after my sister. It's also a hurricane that ravaged New Orleans.
What was the name of it?
Camille.
Sure, you'll come to the proper place. But keep a weather eye open, mates, and hold on tight. With both hands, if you please.
There are two of those waterfalls you go down.
No fear have ye of evil curses, says you. Properly warned ye be, says I. Who knows when that evil curse will strike the greedy beholders of this bewitched treasure? Perhaps he knows too much. He's seen the cursed treasure. You know where it be hidden. Now proceed at your own risk. These be the last friendly words you'll hear. You may not survive to pass this way again. Strike your colors, you bloomin' cockroaches! Miles under, we'll see you, Davy Jones! Speak up, you bilge rat! Where be the treasure?
Do not tell him, Carlos.
Scatter, you cockroach! No! Por favor! No! Pipe him aloft again, lady. By gum, he'll talk.
Don't tell him. Don't be cheeky.
I am no chicken. I will not talk. Weigh anchor now, you swabbies. What be I offered for this winsome wench? Shift your cargo, dearie. Show me your larboard side.
We wash the redhead. We wash the redhead. We wash the redhead.
Strike your colors, you brazen wench. No need to expose your superstructure. And now, you bilge rats, do I hear six? Who makes it six? Six should be. Gold or rum? I'm not sponging for rum. It be gold I'm after.
We wash the redhead.
Where'd you scum?
We wash the redhead.
She be a lively lassie, she were. No, I tell you true, it's sore I be to hoist me colours on the likes of that shy little wench. I be willing to share, I be. No yo-ho. By running and dazzle and even hijack, drink up, say howdy, yo-ho. Yo-ho, yo-ho, a pirate's life for me. We came with a jar and played it nice, drink up, say howdy, yo-ho. We find up the city, we're really upright, drink up, say howdy, yo-ho. Uh-huh. We're begging the fires and we're the world dance, drink up, say howdy, yo-ho.
That's about a nice juicy bow. Hold on, yes, put over here. Now, easy boy. Don't drop it. Here, doggy. Here, doggy. Nice doggy. Come on now. Here you go, dearie. Come on, have a nice little night.
It's like 2 more minutes of the ride, so. Up, you're out, and you're safe. So think about this presentation of Pirates, right? And also a 1968 version of that.
I can't believe they did that. How it was all made in 1968.
Yeah.
All this stuff.
Yeah. And then think about how you would design an entire park, not just a ride, but an entire park. Okay?
How much do we have to draw?
The whole park.
The park,
The
bud.
whole park.
You understand?
Well, you got a week to do it. I mean, starting. I mean, they're thinking about it now, and they'll have until next Wednesday to do it.
So is the green
So maybe-
detention fund
No, gosh, no.
Oh, thank God.
No.
Gracias, Tofi.
You're welcome. I'll see you tomorrow.
Peter, hurry up.
Sneeze you tomorrow.
Yep.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Where are you?